Hello friends, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel if you're enjoying the instruction that I'm giving you. So today we're going to be discussing the skills learned in Suzuki Book 4. This is a big one. It kind of marks the transition from beginner to intermediate violinist, and we are going to be doing a lot more advanced techniques. Speaking of that, Book 4 is the perfect time to start 3-octave scales. So playing scales in 3 octaves is going to have you or the student shifting much higher than they're actually going to have to play in the Suzuki books, which is going to make shifting a lot more comfortable for them, and it's going to make them feel more confident in their pieces as well. So this is a great time to start with 3-octave scales. I really like the book Scales for Advanced Violinists by Barbara Barber. I will, of course, leave it linked down below. Her name is kind of a tongue twister. In this book, we are going to be doing a lot of, not a lot, but a good amount of double stops, okay? In the second sight, there's a huge double stop section. And if you'll recall back in book 3, we did play double stops, but not really like they were introduced in Gavotte in D major, which is only like 2 pieces ago, right? And then in the beret, we had chords, but those were our first chords ever. So I really think it's also important to supplement double stop work here. I really like the book Melodious Double Stops by Josephine Cha. I'll leave that link down below too. It's free on IMSLP, but doing some sort of double stop work outside of the Suzuki books is also going to be super beneficial. I also think this is a great time to add in different bowing etudes, maybe some shifting etudes. So for example, you could add the subject bowing variations or the whistler shifting, again, just to kind of supplement the repertoire a little bit more. Right, so the first piece, the sights G major. So first of all, we have a good amount of double stops here, right? We have those double stops in the first section, and then towards the end, we have some chords. So again, more double stop practice, which is great. We are also practicing lifting the bow off of the string a lot more here. So for example, in the beginning, so lifting our bow more off the string there. The brilliant section is marked with dots over all of the notes, but I do recommend keeping this on the string as the student has not had any really experience with off the string bow strokes yet, but we will be getting there later in book 4, so just keeping this on the string for now. There's really no need to do it off the string. After you've learned spiccato and practice that a little bit, then you can come back and do this off the string. However, you can choose to do the double stops in measure 20 as brush stroke because they are a little bit slower and the student does have time to kind of lift the bow off the string there, but that is optional. There are clear sections in this piece that have different dynamic characters, so that is also a great thing to talk about and work on. Since these are actual like real concertos now, I also love for my students to go on YouTube and listen to a bunch of different recordings and tell me who's their favorite and why. Next piece, Sights 5, such a great piece. I think it's an awesome piece for practicing vibrato. We have a lot of big moments where we want to have a big, beautiful, juicy vibrato. Also great for the different characters and different sections. Again, these are real concertos, real music, so we gotta make them interesting, right? There are opportunities, again, to practice that brush stroke in preparation for spiccato, say around in measure 30 and measure 52. But again, the brilliant at the end should be on the string. A few double stops at the end, and we are practicing fast string crossings where we're just using our wrists rather than our whole elbow. So for example, really just circling my wrist there. All right, the third movement of the sights D major, huge double stop section. This is definitely the most challenging part of the whole piece. And again, this is why it's so important to be incorporating extra double stop work outside of the repertoire so that the student won't be totally shocked when they get there. I recommend taking it in just bite-sized chunks, practicing a few measures, then a few measures, and kind of building on it. Also might be a good idea to preview this while they're finishing up the first movement. Now we're on to the Vivaldi A minor, which is such a great milestone in a young violinist's career. First of all, I've never met a student that didn't like this piece. I loved this piece when I was younger, so I think it's a great way to get them kind of revamped and re-excited about the violin if they're kind of starting to dwindle. There's a lot going on in this Vivaldi. I actually have a whole IGTV series talking about specific teaching points for each piece. If you want to go check that out on my Instagram at Suzuki Violin Teacher. But to keep it short and sweet, basically want to be exaggerating dynamics. We are going to be shifting a lot, so getting more comfortable with shifting. We're also going to be utilizing second position, so getting more comfortable with second position is going to be very important here. We're also going to be dealing a lot with like more fast passage work and really minimizing, I guess, the motion when we're doing string crossings. So I'm thinking, for example, on that third page, we have a lot of big string crossings. So figuring out how to navigate those is a huge part of this piece. The same thing kind of goes for the third movement. I believe it's on the second page where we have that really tricky passage with all the different string crossings. I also think intonation is very important here because there's a lot of changes between like C sharp and C natural. So really refining intonation and making sure that I can hear clear differences when they're like supposed to be different, right? Again, incorporating more dynamics, more shifting, and really just coming into your own as a violinist. All right, then we have the Perpetual Motion. So this is where we start to learn how to use spiccato. So I think the easiest way to learn spiccato is to first just start out with a détaché. So just and then gradually get faster and use less bow, and then allow your bow to come off the string. So important to be very light with your right hand, otherwise your bow won't come off the string. So for example, so that's an exercise that I have my students practice, and you can of course practice this on the string at first just to get a feel for the notes. It is kind of tricky and for the finger pattern as well, because there's a lot of repetition and it's easy to get lost. So just make sure that you're listening to it a lot, that you can sing it, and like I said, you can practice it just on the string first, and then once you're feeling good about spiccato, then you can practice it spiccato. And finally, we have the Bach Double. So I do think that Violin 1 and Violin 2 are kind of interchangeable in terms of difficulty. So if you have a studio and a lot of them are playing like the second violin part, and you're missing some first violin part, I think you can switch, right? Because the first violin part's at the end of book 5, so I think you could do first violin here if you wanted. Bach Double, again, a lot of shifting, a lot of string crossings, a lot of fast passage work, a lot of dynamic contrast. So we are really coming into our own as a violinist and starting to play actual music, right, rather than kind of just short little concert pieces or exercises or etudes. This is a really fun one, and I also think it's important to note that the students should have played other duets before playing this Bach Double, because it is kind of tricky to put together, and if it's their first time ever playing a duet, I think it's going to be very difficult, so just make sure you're playing some fun duets with them before that. As always, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. Please subscribe if you're enjoying my instruction, and thank you for watching.